And we're back! Hi, Blogging Heads viewers. It's Daniel Strauss and Betsy Woodruff for round 2. We are in the home stretch. This is, I think, we count at Politico, and we're at 300 days till the election.
Wow. 300 magical little periods of time to mull over the seismic shifts our nation's facing and the important decision of who should lead the free world.
This is probably going to go after the State of the Union.
Time.
We could try and pre-expect the State of the Union. Be like, I really wanted Obama to talk about government.
Yeah, but this video probably won't go up till after. So the possibility of being very embarrassed is extremely high.
We're both in campaign mode right now, but the final State of the Union, does that really matter? I feel like it's gonna he's gonna kind of phone it in.
Isn't it the YOLO State of the Union?
Yeah. He's
doing a bunch of YouTube videos afterwards.
Maybe Obama has the presidential flask, in his hip pocket or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's first
probably.
time Paul Ryan.
It's Paul Ryan's first State of the Union.
First State of the Union.
It's a big deal. It's Joe Biden's last State of the Union, which is very sad. No more signature Joe Biden winks and thumbs up as the president's discussing.
That was uplifting. Yeah, even in the worst years of the Obama administration, Joe was there being like, Joe. Can you imagine? So the other guys on the short list were Tim Kaine, Senator Reid of Rhode Island. None of them.
I didn't even realize Senator Reid was on the short list.
Yeah, Reid was on the short list.
Interesting.
Who else was on there? Jim Webb. Can you imagine, State of the Union with Jim Webb?
He did kill a man.
Yeah, he killed a guy. Okay. It's not clear if he'd killed the guy just to see him die, or if there was I
don't think so. I think probably not. I think if you do that, you're not supposed to be a senator. Maybe.
Or, okay, there's no, but the big news in the last few days is that Carly and Rand have been relegated to the undercard debate, and Rand
isn't even going to do it.
Rand won't do it because he feels that it's a definition of a lackluster campaign. He has had a top-tier campaign. Not according to the polls.
I just like him saying he thinks he's too good for the undercard debate.
I mean, that's it, right? That's
Is Jim Gilmore going to be in the undercard?
Yes.
Awesome.
It's Carly, Santorum, Rand, and oh shit! Why can't I? You might have to check this here.
I'm not sure.
I think Gilmore is going to make it.
Let's see.
We're Pataki this now.
I know. Now we're not Pataki anymore. We need someone who was governor on 9/11.
Christie wasn't governor on 9/11, right?
No.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm not seeing on his Twitter anything about him being in the debate.
Huckabee will be in the undercard.
Huckabee will, Santorum will.
So it's Mike, Rick, Carly, and Rand.
Yeah.
I don't think Jim will be there. Will be
I
don't
think he'll be there.
Jim Gilmore, though, despite never making it to the main stage debate, has outlasted Scott Walker and Bobby Jindal.
I know. He's playing the long game.
Okay. So is this fair? Is it real? I don't know. I'm I just from Chris Christie's doing better than Rand, and he was in the undercard debate, and he just handled it well. And he's not exactly a modest guy. He said, just give me a debate stage, and he just hammered at Hillary the entire time, and now he's on the main stage.
Can we talk about the notion that Rand Paul is running a top-tier campaign? What do you make of that? Would you use those words to characterize this campaign, and why or why not?
I would...
Just asking.
Explain
in 300 words or less.
So, I think we mostly define top-tier campaign by fundraising and poll numbers, right? And then sort of chance at and organization. An organization is kind of a fluid metric that is actually the most important metric, but one like it's hardest to really characterize minute by minute. In terms of polling, Rand has struggled. He has failed to break double digits in most polls in most primary states and nationally. And then in terms of fundraising, he said he's raised a total of $20 million, which is not a huge amount, and that is actually the aggregate for super PACs. He has 3 that are supporting him, and not just his campaign. 2 cycles ago, he raised about $7 million personally, and this last 2 quarters ago, and this last quarter, he raised less. So by those metrics, it would not be a top-tier campaign. He has operatives who are well-known. Michael Biondo is the former campaign manager for Rick Santorum's 2012 operation, and he's running Rand in New Hampshire. And Rand, who I've talked to a number of times on this, has said that polls are so fluid that they can't really be trusted, and he likes to say
polls are so what?
Fluid that he can't they can't be really trusted. And last time I talked to him last week, he cited the Kentucky governor's race where Matt Bevin beat out Jack Conway despite polls predicting the reverse. So that is my 300-word answer on the criteria. What do you think, Betsy? It's getting to the point where like we can really define what a top-tier campaign is.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's nonsense. I don't think there's any compelling argument to be made that people should take the Rand Paul campaign seriously, or that he actually has a shot at being president. Right. I just don't think that's true. And something I think, especially at this point, having a ton of people on the debate stage is really like a missed opportunity. It's kind of a waste of everybody's time. We don't need to know what Mike Huckabee thinks about Syria. You know, like nobody cares. Like Rand Paul is not going to be president. The best question for him is, how are you going to be competitive in your Senate race, and how do you make that pivot very quickly, given that it's, 300 days until Rand Paul's Senate reelect, that he probably needs to be worrying about a little bit.
He likes to say that there's no serious opponent, but our reporters who cover the Senate race say it's essentially a nominating question right now, and it could happen very quickly.
Right. And also, like, saying there's no serious opponent just seems like kind of a derogatory thing to say to the Kentucky voters, right? Like, he's taking them for granted and not worried about sort of proving himself to his actual constituents.
Right.
I don't know. I think it's a little perplexing. Of course, candidates make those messaging decisions on their own, blah, 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 etc. But, yeah, of course he's not a top-tier candidate. Like, not by any stretch of the imagination. What, in the RCP national average, he's at 2.8. That's not awesome. That's pretty bad. Let me see if I can pull up. Let's look at where he's at in Iowa. In the Iowa RCP average, he's at 3.8. I mean, and this is a guy who's been going to Iowa a jillion times for the last 3 years, whose dad, where did Rand place?
I mean, there were 3.
Where did Ron place?
Ron, I think in the end he won the most caucus voters in Iowa. It went, Santorum won by a hair, ballots were missing, then it was Mitt, I think, and then it was Rand on just caucus or delegates.
Yeah,
I think so.
Like Ron, his dad ran like a competitive, serious Iowa campaign, and he can't even crack 4%. I mean, come on. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if he gets any sort of outpouring of goodwill.
Daniel Strauss, no relation, who we had on the program in 2015, I made this argument. He was like, he said, just let's do away with the undercard debate. I don't have access to analytics at Politico, so I don't know how it does traffic-wise, but like no one I've talked to over the holiday was like, hey, Daniel, I want to talk about politics, and particularly that crazy undercard debate. All right? Like, the main stage is okay.
They should let Roman Supreme be in it.
I mean, it's not... I think it's supposed to be kind of like AAA baseball, kind of kitschy, kind of fun.
Yeah.
But I don't get the sense that it's particularly that way at all.
No, and I mean, I think it mattered at the very beginning when there were candidates who were interesting and legit, but there just wasn't physical room for them on stage. Like when Chris Christie and Carly obviously had really competitive, interesting undercard debate appearances that were good for them, sort of like temporarily gave them momentum. Mm-hmm. I think at that point it mattered when it was still kind of getting shaken out who was going to be competitive and who wasn't. But now we pretty much know. Like, I don't buy this, fluid polls. Like, no, we pretty much know. I don't know.
No,
that's my take.
I think, I don't know. I think you're right, that the moment has passed to really use a good undercard debate to springboard into the main stage. Because there was a moment when it's like, oh, let's look at that guy that no one's paying attention to, or, oh, I forgot about him. And that moment may have passed. So in a sense, maybe it is good that Rand has officially confirmed that he's not going to go to the undercard debate and feels that poll numbers are wrong here. What was interesting is that CNN sort of like made room in their last debate to allow Rand in, and they'd done that for Carly too, so there was precedent for it.
Yeah.
Fox Business Network in the last debate said Christie could not do that, which kind of set them up to also say we can't bend the rules for Rand either.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I feel like from a Fox Business perspective, having Rand there is not going to make any appreciable difference on their ratings.
Right. Right.
I had 0% chance that they'd be like, oh, I wasn't going to watch the Fox Business debate, but Rand Paul isn't going to be there, so now I'm tuning in.
I don't know. I think one thing that shouldn't be underestimated is the hardcore Rand supporters, that they still exist and they still are just about like liberty and the party, a new isolationist direction for the party.
Yeah,
I don't know. So who is?
And the other thing that is actually kind of a downside about this is that Rand has made the debates more interesting. Like him and Christie going back and forth over civil liberties, Fourth Amendment issues. Those have been some of the best parts of the debates.
Right.
So it's not like we're losing someone who is substance free.
So this means I mean, I don't want to spend too much time on Rand here, but like this means.
Hey, I can't hear you.
Sorry, I don't want to spend too much time with Rand here. But this means that sort of isolationists have lost have lost the party, right? I mean, the argument is Ted Cruz has been trying to woo libertarian voters by being sort of the tenable libertarian guy, but he never goes too far in that direction. Have you been following that strand of this?
Yeah, I think Cruz is really interesting because he is, like, substantively different from Rubio on this stuff, and is definitely, from what I can tell, more in the realist category than the neocon category.
Yeah.
I mean, part of the issue with this is that whatever people say they're going to do when they're running for president on foreign policy just seems to go totally out the window. Mm-hmm. And so you can only take, and so their rhetoric only means so much because so much of it has to do with, what kind of staff they hire and what happens in the world. All sorts of those things that nobody could have predicted can have dramatic impacts, blah, blah, blah. We don't really know. That said, Cruz's rhetoric is definitely substantively different from Rubio's. The two big issues are Syria. Cruz has basically said the United States shouldn't depose Assad because our interventions in other Middle Eastern countries have gone uniformly bad, and we need to stop sort of, playing around with who gets to lead these nations. Rather, we need to focus on American interests. That's very different from the Bill Kristol, Weekly Standard, AEI, John Bolton, Marco Rubio school of thought on foreign policy.
Right.
And it's also it's also a pretty pointed criticism at everything the Republican Party's argued about foreign policy going back to 9/11.
Right.
So it's a big departure. I don't know if that rhetorical departure would also mean an actual policy departure.
Right.
If you were elected, we don't know. But still, it's interesting. And the other area, of course, is the USA Freedom Act, which was a reform to the NSA's wiretapping program. I'm not a wonk or expert on those issues at all, but basically changed how the NSA is able to access phone metadata of American citizens.
Right.
And Rubio, of course, has said that Ted Cruz supporting this means he's a friend of Al-Qaeda, and he's the senator from ISIS, and it's going to destroy America, and it's so good for the terrorists. Ted Cruz wants the terrorists to
Marco
win.
Rubio, the hawkish senator from Florida.
I know. I mean, my other favorite Marco Rubio is a hot comment, is that he's argued that sugar subsidies are an issue of national security, because if we don't subsidize sugar in the United States, our sugar industry will be less competitive and will be reliant on foreign sugar.
Okay,
and food security is national security.
Well,
the
knee-jerk question I have to that point is the sugar industry thriving in Florida? I'm gonna, yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
What do you? Okay,
yes.
the big thing that we should definitely talk about though is the birther attention that's gone to Ted Cruz.
Okay.
And we saw this coming.
Such a good election.
And part of it is just spurned by Donald Trump saying, "I'm just saying it could be a problem later on," and a few other candidates jumping in on that. What do you think of this, Betsy? I haven't heard too many Democrats weigh in. I'm sure they'll want to stir the pot more if it calms down, but want to do it quietly to not be called hypocrite.
Well, yeah, I mean, the general consensus, obviously, is that it's a non-issue, that Cruz has the constitutional right to run for president because he was a citizen when he was born. However, the Supreme Court hasn't ruled on it. It's not a question that's been litigated. So, there's a sliver, tiny possibility that he couldn't. The only question is somebody going to sue over it? Who would have standing? And I don't know a ton about sort of the legal ins and outs of that. Mm-hmm. That said, I think the real problem this presents for Cruz is that is that a lot of Republican primary voters don't want someone who was born in Canada. They want somebody who was born here. I mean, this election is dominated by fear of foreigners, fear of foreign influence, fear of immigration, the fact that Ted Cruz is an immigrated to the United States, even though he was a U.S. citizen when he was born. That's, I think for a certain portion of the Republican base, that's a problem. And Trump, of course, has done a good job of saying, well, I'm not saying this, but everybody else is saying it, so we should talk about it. I don't know.
I mean, I think if there's any, I think you make a good point, and if we see any dip in polling in Iowa, where Cruz is now leading Trump, it'll be due to that. It's I gotta think. I've been continually impressed with how well Cruz has run his campaign, and he's in second place in New Hampshire, not making a super big footprint there, while establishment-aligned Republicans are clawing each other's eyes out to get third or fourth there. Christie and Jeb, and to an extent Marco. I have a feeling he has a plan, or is looking. I mean, he knew this was coming from the beginning, so I don't know how much damage it will do, but maybe these attacks are effective. I mean, we're reminding the voters of this in a time where sort of opposition to foreign presence is at a bit of a high within the party.
Right.
Maybe it could be effective.
Yeah,
I haven't.
I think so.
Do you think it's a move of desperation by Trump? Do you think it's a sign that he's getting worried here?
I'm sorry?
Do you think it's a move of desperation by Trump? Do you think he's getting worried here?
Well, I mean, obviously he has been worried about Iowa, you know?
Yeah.
It's better for him to win Iowa than not win Iowa. Iowan primary voters are pretty notably disconcerted by immigration, changing demographics, sort of a diversifying populace. Steve King is very influential and popular there. So I don't know that it's like, does this mean he's worried? I think it's more Donald Trump thought up kind of a trolly, weird way to go after Cruz, and it's not going to hurt Trump because Trump's supporters obviously don't care at all. Democrats seem to be having a little bit of fun with it, and yeah, it makes Cruz spend the week talking about constitutional law.
Democrats are so smug about this primary. They love it. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, this is great.
But the Democratic primary is also a little bit of a cluster. Like, depending on what poll you look at, this investors.com poll, I think it's Investors Business Daily, I want to say, that came out, showed Hillary losing support with moderate Democrats.
I mean, it's
Bernie Sanders picking up moderates from her, which is bizarre.
So remember, Bernie was the second choice to primary challengers to Elizabeth Warren. If Warren had run, I have a feeling it'd be a lot more competitive than it is now.
I think maybe, but I think on the other hand,
really, you're doubtful on this.
I think Bernie Sanders is way more competitive than people thought, and I think his persona has an appeal that Elizabeth Warren's might not. The fact that he has the accent, and he sort of seems like a weird grandpa, and he speaks very simply. Elizabeth Warren's a little wonkier than he is. When she starts talking about financial policy and bank regulations, it gets in the weeds, which is not a bad thing, but it gets in the weeds fairly quickly. Bernie Sanders is just break up the big banks. Our bridges are terrible. Don't drive.
I mean, that's where the
I think it's,
the overlap.
I'm not sure it would be different. Although it might be. I don't know.
I know someone whose brother is either going to vote for Donald Trump or Bernie Sanders.
There you go. Yeah.
I mean,
democracy is fun.
So I want to throw one last thing out there to you, and that is that it's just a sentence that's been running around in my head, which is that Ted Cruz is now the establishment, which is that Ted Cruz is the center. There's someone more extreme to his right. He is sort of at the lead of the party or represents that, and the moderates are the sort of the radicals. The guys like Jed.
Moderates are the controversial, unpopular
unwanted ones.
Yeah.
The
black sheep.
Yeah. I mean, there's not much more than that, but that just seems to be the case. Republican primary voters will say, yeah, Ted is good enough if his lead continues. It's it's not great, but it's better than all those other guys.
That's kind of the case he has to make, right?
Yeah. Ted
Cruz, at least I'm not Donald Trump.
But I'm still super conservative.
Right, yeah.
Like that.
So
I mean, all right. Well, Betsy, how was your holiday, by the way? One thing I gripe about is getting asked about politics when I'm home for the holidays.
Okay.
And some of my other friends in the political world say the same thing. My one friend, he has a relative who likes to pick at him about his preferred candidate, and it's starting to get on his nerves badly. How do you handle that? I get that you want to ask your local correspondent about politics if we do this, but
Well, and I mean, I'm from a pretty important county. I'm from Loudoun County in Northern Virginia, which I think has picked, I want to say, as Loudoun goes, so goes the nation, or something like that. It's a pretty strong predictor of national election results. A lot of immigrants, kind of partly DC economy, very affluent, but also a lot of inequality. A really interesting place. But I hate talking about politics with people who I'm friends with at home. I just never really do it. So
I just need the time. I need to talk to the regular folks.
I know.
Regular folks about the regular stuff.
I know. It's like, how are you supposed to take a vacation if people are like, so, Ben Carson, huh, he's interesting. Yeah. You think he's interesting? Like, I don't want to have this conversation. Don't
but
make
now,
me do this.
This is a good way to end this. We are now back into this, Blogging Heads viewers. 2016 is finally here. We've been doing this since the 2014 midterm elections were coming up. So now we're finally in it. So here we go again, another year. All right, Betsy, I got to get back to work now. As always, it's been good. It'll be good to be on the ride through the election with you. So let's go to it. I'll see you.
Yay.
All right, I'll see you later. Thanks.
All right, bye.